Today, we have episode 4 of the AI v Judge series, Google's ad tech empire, under the microscope, AI antitrust critique.
Picture a massive high-stakes monopoly trial.
Right.
On one side, you have the Department of Justice, and they're armed with sweeping economic theories and, millions of pages of evidence.
Easily millions.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you've got one of the most powerful tech companies on the planet, backed by armies of top-tier antitrust lawyers and, brilliant economists.
The best money can buy.
Exactly. So the financial stakes are in the billions, and the arguments are so labyrinthine they can literally make your head spin. Now, what happens when you drop an artificial intelligence right into the middle of that legal battlefield and ask it to play referee?
Well, it creates the ultimate collision of two very different worlds.
Right.
You are taking the messy, highly strategic, and often, emotionally charged realm of human litigation, and you're feeding it directly into the cold, calculating logic of a machine.
Which sounds kind of crazy.
It is, but it serves as an incredible stress test,
Yeah.
and not just for the legal arguments themselves, but for the current capabilities of the technology.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a really compelling set of sources to explore today. We're looking at an insightful article titled AI Critique in Antitrust.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece.
It really is. So we are looking at a specific real-world experiment that tested whether an AI could effectively critique complex economic expert reports in active, high-stakes litigation.
And the test case for this experiment is the monumental United States v. Google ad tech lawsuit.
Yes, the ad tech case. And I want to be completely clear right up front. Our mission today is not to relitigate the case.
Right, absolutely not.
We're not here to decide who is right or wrong or, take sides in the tech monopoly debate. We are strictly examining the factual breakdown from this experiment.
Exactly.
We're just exploring the AI's methodology, the specific mathematical findings it generated, and how its analysis ultimately stacked up against a human judge.
And, this is an experiment that really matters to you, the listener, for a very profound reason.
Because of the density of it all.
Right. We all navigate a world defined by severe information overload, complex legal battles, intricate economic strategies, massive corporate mergers. These subjects are almost always treated like a black box.
Oh, totally. They're dense, they're jargon heavy.
Exactly. And most people simply tune them out because the barrier to entry is just too high.
Yeah, it's like reading a different language.
But understanding how an AI can parse through this incredible density to identify the structural weak points in a seemingly bulletproof argument, that gives you a massive superpower for critical thinking.
Oh, I love that. A superpower.
It really is. Whether you are evaluating a competitor's business strategy, reading the news, or just trying to understand the invisible plumbing of the digital economy, this methodology changes how you look at information.
So true. But before we can understand the AI's critique, we really have to understand the human argument it was analyzing.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah. So let's set the stage with the Department of Justice's case against Google. This was filed back in January 2023. At the core of it, the government was claiming that Google willfully acquired and maintained monopoly power in the open web display advertising market.
And the specific mechanism they alleged is what antitrust economists call tying and foreclosure within a two-sided platform.
Tying and foreclosure, which sounds intense.
Well, the two-sided nature is the crucial variable here. A traditional monopoly might just be a company that controls all the steel or all the oil.
Right, standard monopoly stuff.
Exactly. But a two-sided platform connects two distinct groups of users. In ad tech, those two groups are publishers, like a news website trying to sell space on its homepage, and advertisers.
Like a shoe brand looking to buy that space.
You got it. And Google sits right in the middle, operating the software that matches the buyer to the seller in milliseconds.
Okay, let's unpack this with a different lens, because it's a lot to visualize.
Sure.
Imagine you own the only toll booth to a major highway, and you use that control to force all the drivers to only buy gas from your specific gas station, starving out the rival stations.
That's a great way to put it.
It makes it a bit more tangible, right?
Yeah. And the translation to the digital ad world relies on a specific piece of software. It's Google's publisher ad server known as Google Ad Manager.
And the sources highlight a staggering statistic about that server.
Right. This ad server was used by more than 90% of major publishers.
90%? That's insane.
It was the essential upstream tool, like the ultimate gateway.
The toll booth.
Exactly, the toll booth. And the DOJ claimed Google used this massive bottleneck to tie the server to its own downstream service, the ad exchange or AdX, where the actual matching and purchasing happens.
And the mechanics of how they allegedly did this, they go way beyond simple mandates.
Oh, way beyond.
The sources outline how Google supposedly disadvantaged rival ad exchanges through complex, automated, self-preferencing rules.
Right.
For example, there's a mechanism called first last look. And from my understanding of the sources, this basically meant Google's own exchange got to peek at the auction bids before competitors.
Yeah.
Or they got the final chance to outbid a rival by a single penny. It essentially tilted the chronological queue of the auction entirely in their favor.
And that chronological advantage is massive in algorithmic trading. I mean, it's everything.
Because it's happening in milliseconds.
Yeah, exactly. Another mechanism the DOJ pointed to was unified pricing rules.
Oh, right.
So Google allegedly restricted publishers from setting different minimum price floors for different exchanges.
Okay, wait, what does that mean in practice?
Well, if a publisher wanted to charge a premium to Google's exchange, but offer a discount to a rival exchange just to drum up competition, the software rules made that virtually impossible.
Wow.
Yeah. It forced a uniformity that inherently benefited the biggest player with the most volume, which was Google.
Then there is the restriction on header bidding. I always found this fascinating.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Header bidding was this innovation where publishers could send a signal out to dozens of ad exchanges simultaneously, essentially shouting to the whole room, who wants this ad space?
Right, like a true open auction.
Yeah, instead of calling one buyer at a time sequentially. But the DOJ argued Google modified its tools to severely restrict this practice.
They forced publishers back into a sequential, Google-controlled system.
Right. So when you combine the first look advantage, the pricing rules, and the suppression of header bidding, you really start to see the mechanical causality of the harm.
Yeah, it paints a very specific picture.
It's not just that Google is big, it's that these specific gears in the machine were allegedly turned to freeze out rivals.
And the DOJ's expert used this evidence of, actual software conduct, data leverage, and platform control to argue that these tactics forced billions of dollars in ad spend to shift exclusively to Google's exchange.
Which obviously hurts the competitors.
Right. It ultimately harmed overall competition and reduced the financial yields that publishers were able to generate to fund their website.
Okay, so if the DOJ's argument is that mechanically sound, they have a 90% market share and they're using these specific algorithmic levers to box out competitors, why did Google fight it so vigorously?
Well, that brings us to the defense's counter-argument.
The profitability puzzle.
Exactly. Google's central claim wasn't simply a blanket denial of the software features.
Right. They couldn't just say the code didn't exist.
Right. Their defense was that the DOJ's entire theory was, quote, economically irrational.
Economically irrational.
Yes. And this gets back to our discussion about two-sided markets.
Okay.
Standard antitrust economics dictates that proving a company has the ability to foreclose a rival, say, by owning that 90% bottleneck, is only half the battle.
Because they have to actually want to do it.
Exactly. You must also prove they have the financial incentive to do so.
Wait, so Google is essentially saying, why would we intentionally shrink the pie just to get a slightly bigger slice? Does that actually hold up?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it does make a certain kind of economic sense.
Okay, explain that.
So, because it's a two-sided market, publishers rely on this entire ecosystem for revenue. If Google degraded the performance of rival exchanges, publishers make less money overall. And if publishers make less money, they produce less content.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then the overall quality of the ad inventory flowing through Google's own tools declines. They are essentially shrinking the whole pie.
So they would be hurting themselves in the process.
Exactly. Google's economic defense was that a foreclosure strategy would ultimately be unprofitable for them in the long run. Because they take a fee from the overall volume of the market, depressing publisher revenue across the board means Google loses money on a macroeconomic scale.
Right, because the lost revenue across the entire internet-wide platform would far exceed any short-term gains they might capture by boosting their specific ad exchange.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so the battle lines are firmly drawn. The DOJ argues that Google used its bottleneck to tactically crush rivals and funnel money to itself.
Yep.
And Google argues that doing so would be economic suicide in a two-sided ecosystem.
Right, and human economists can argue this back and forth for years.
Oh, absolutely. So this is exactly where the researchers unleashed the AI on the expert reports to see if a machine could break the tie. Let's look at how they actually structured this test.
The experiment followed a really strict protocol to avoid hallucination or bias.
Which is crucial with AI right now.
Exactly. So step one, they fed the AI the publicly available antitrust expert reports submitted in the litigation.
Okay.
Step two, they asked the AI to critique the economic reasoning, focusing specifically on market definition, competitive effects, and the proof of harm.
Got it.
Step three, they isolated the AI's findings. And finally, step four, they performed an alignment test.
An alignment test.
Yeah, they basically compared the AI's economic critique to the reasoning ultimately adopted by the human judge when the trial concluded.
That is so cool. Okay, so when the AI analyzed the DOJ's report, it found a surprisingly nuanced picture. It didn't just rubber stamp the government, nor did it completely dismantle it.
Right, it was very objective.
Yeah. The AI actually agreed with the DOJ on several foundational structural points. It validated the framework of looking at both ability and incentive.
And most importantly, the AI concluded that the publisher ad server, sitting at that 90% market share, was indeed a critical bottleneck.
It agreed on the toll booth.
Exactly. It recognized that those complex contractual and technical rules we discussed, like suppressing header bidding, created substantial barriers for rival exchanges.
So the AI understood the ability side of the equation perfectly.
It did. But it spotted massive glaring weaknesses in the DOJ experts' profitability analysis. The incentive side.
The incentive side, right.
Yeah, two major structural flaws stood out in the machine's critique. First, the AI flagged that the DOJ expert did not sufficiently account for something called multi-homing.
Multi-homing. Right, so this means publishers and advertisers aren't just sitting in one ecosystem. If a publisher feels they're getting a bad deal on Google's platform, they can simultaneously plug their website into a competitor's ad server or route their inventory through different digital pipes.
They have multiple homes for their ad space.
Right.
And the AI pointed out that if widespread multi-homing is occurring, if buyers and sellers can relatively easily bypass the bottleneck when prices get too high, the long-run revenue loss to the overall platform could be much smaller than projected.
But the ability to capture monopoly rents is also severely diminished, right?
Precisely. If advertisers can just go around the toll booth loses its pricing power. The AI identified this as a critical variable that the DOJ's theory hadn't fully neutralized.
Okay, and the second weakness the AI identified was the lack of a rigorous counterfactual.
Right.
And from my reading, a counterfactual is basically an alternate universe baseline.
That's a good way to describe it.
So the AI was saying, sure, Google made a huge amount of money and its market share grew, but how do you mathematically isolate the actual harm caused by these specific restrictive rules versus the natural advantages of Google simply having massive pre-existing scale, better search algorithms, and a popular browser?
Exactly. You have to prove the specific conduct caused the specific harm. I mean, if a company builds a genuinely faster, more efficient matching algorithm, they will naturally gain market share.
Because they just built a better product.
Right. The AI noted that the DOJ's experts struggle to separate the legal gains of innovation from the allegedly illegal gains of platform manipulation.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I have to push back on the AI's capability here.
Okay, let's hear it.
But wait, the text explicitly notes this AI critique is ex ante and based only on publicly available info.
Yes, that's true.
The AI couldn't see sealed exhibits or raw data sets. It couldn't read the internal emails. Isn't the AI just playing armchair quarterback without the full playbook?
What's fascinating here is that that limitation is actually what makes the AI's performance so striking.
Really? How so?
Well, the researchers didn't need it to read a million hidden emails. They needed it to evaluate the structural integrity of the economic argument itself.
Ah, I see.
Despite being blind to the sealed, confidential data, the AI successfully identified the exact methodological weaknesses that high-priced defense lawyers spent months targeting.
That's incredible.
It understood the underlying mathematical framework of a two-sided market so thoroughly that it knew exactly where the weak points in the DOJ's argument had to be, purely by looking at the load-bearing walls of the claims.
It's like looking at the blueprints of a house and knowing the roof will leak without ever having to wait for it to rain.
Yes, Exactly.
But the AI didn't just write a critical essay pointing out flaws. The sources detail how it actually generated what the researchers call affirmative evidence.
Right. It actually did the math.
Yeah, it built its own mathematical model to prove its point.
The AI ran a stylized sensitivity analysis on the foreclosure profitability.
Okay, what does that mean for us non-economists?
Well, a sensitivity analysis tests how sensitive the final outcome of an equation is to changes in the underlying assumptions.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in this case, the AI built an illustrative simulation to test how Google's net financial gain from this foreclosure strategy would shift under different assumptions about that multi-homing rate we discussed.
Let's break down the math from the AI simulation because the numbers are fascinating here.
Let's do it.
They ran a base case that aligned with the DOJ's underlying theory. The AI assumed a 15% inventory shift, meaning the restrictive rules successfully forced 50% more ad space into Google's ad exchange.
Right.
But accounting for the two-sided market blowback, it also calculated an 8% overall network revenue decline because publishers were making less money and traffic degraded.
And what was the result of that?
A net financial loss for Google of $77 million.
I mean, let that sink in. Under the mathematical framework built from the DOJ's own initial assumptions, the strategy actually costs Google more money than it generates.
Wow.
The long-term damage to the ecosystem outweighs the short-term bump to the ad exchange.
But the AI didn't stop there. It then ran an adjusted case, applying the defense's critique.
Right. Testing the variables.
Yeah. It tweaked the variables to assume a much higher multi-homing rate of 50%. Meaning users were heavily utilizing rival pipes alongside Google's.
And how did that change things?
Well, with that adjustment, the financial damage shrinks significantly, but the outcome remains the same, a net negative, a loss of $28 million.
This is a tremendous analytical flex by the machine. I mean, its conclusion was definitive. Even under the DOJ's own logic of how the market operates, plausible real-world multi-homing rates render the entire foreclosure strategy unprofitable for Google in the long run.
It's amazing.
The AI essentially built a functioning mathematical model proving the defense's core point. The restrictive behavior appeared economically irrational on a spreadsheet.
Okay, so the AI proves the defense has a mathematically sound point. The models show it was unprofitable.
Right.
But a trial isn't decided by a spreadsheet. What actually happened when human behavior, rather than pure economic theory, met the courtroom?
Well, we got the verdict in April 2025. The court found Google liable for monopolization and unlawful pieing.
Wow.
Yeah, the human judge sided completely with the Department of Justice.
Wait, if the math, both from the defense's highly paid human experts and our rigorous AI model, showed that the long-run strategy was a literal money loser, why did the judge ignore the pristine economic theory? What overrode the math?
Internal business documents.
Ah, the smoking gun.
Exactly. This is where the messy, irrational reality of human business overrides the clean logic of an economic model. The court found that Google's own internal communications were the ultimate deciding factor.
So we're talking about the private emails, the strategy memos, the presentation slide decks.
Yes. And those documents didn't necessarily contain perfect long-term numerical projections of two-sided market health.
Obviously not.
Right. Instead, they provided massive qualitative and quantitative evidence of intent.
Intent over theory.
Exactly. They showed executives extensively monitoring specific rival exchanges, actively developing and implementing the exact self-preferencing rules we discussed, and explicitly stating a clear intent to protect their market share and favor their own ad exchange at the expense of competitors.
So in the eyes of the court, intent conquers theory.
100%. The court decided that this real-world behavior, this documented human intent to squash competition, was infinitely stronger evidence than a theoretical economic model projecting long-term margin losses.
That makes a lot of sense.
The actual conduct, detailed in executives' own words, proved the monopolization theory true to the judge, regardless of whether an AI spreadsheet determined the behavior was technically irrational in a vacuum.
This brings us to the final piece of the experiment, the alignment test,
Yeah.
or the AI versus judge scorecard.
Right, let's see how they matched up.
So on the basic structure of the market, the ability to foreclose, the AI and the judge were in total lockstep. Both recognized the publisher ad server was a critical bottleneck holding a 90% share.
The divergence occurred entirely on the incentive to foreclose.
Right.
The AI focused heavily on the theoretical long-run profitability, the multi-homing rates, and the platform-wide losses. It saw a massive mathematical vulnerability in the DOJ's argument and flagged the lack of a strong counterfactual analysis.
But the judge acknowledged the economic theories, even acknowledging that multi-homing existed, but ultimately found Google had clear incentive based purely on their actual conduct in internal documents.
Exactly.
The AI modeled what a perfectly rational economic actor should do. The judge ruled on what human executives actually did.
It perfectly illustrates the enduring gap between economic modeling and legal realities.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's recap the real value of this experiment.
Yeah, let's bring it back.
Because the source material goes out of its way to explicitly state what this AI experiment does not do. It is not more accurate than human courts.
Definitely not.
It is absolutely not a replacement for deep legal or economic expertise. And, as we just saw with the divergence on the final verdict, it is not a magic crystal ball that can predict case outcomes.
The true utility really lies in its diagnostic power. What the AI provides is a remarkably fast, highly structured way to examine exactly how complex arguments are constructed.
Right.
It offers rigorous economics-based critiques. It can run testable sensitivity analyses in seconds to see how changes in data affect the outcome.
Which would take a human days or weeks.
Exactly. It is a tool that helps litigators, judges, and everyday readers better understand the vulnerabilities and the pressure points of incredibly dense arguments. It illuminates the cracks in the foundation, even if the human judge eventually decides those cracks aren't big enough to break the case.
It's like having a world-class sparring partner to test your logic and find the holes in your defense before you ever step into the ring.
That's a great analogy.
Reviewing all this leaves me with a lingering, incredibly provocative thought.
Oh, what's that?
We just saw an artificial intelligence perfectly model what is economically rational on a pristine, frictionless spreadsheet.
Right.
But human executives ultimately acted on their own competitive instincts, their drive for market dominance, and their aggressive intent, which inevitably gets captured in private emails.
Right, the messy human element.
Exactly. If an AI can perfectly model what is economically rational on a spreadsheet, but human executives ultimately act on competitive instincts and aggressive intent captured in private emails, will artificial intelligence ever truly be able to predict the outcome of human laws? Or will human irrationality always be the ultimate wild card?
Wow. It is the ultimate diagnostic challenge. I mean, we always want the clean X-ray, the perfect equation that explains human behavior.
Yeah.
But humans, especially in the high-stakes world of business, rarely act like perfect equations.
We want the math to be binary, but reality is always a little bit blurry. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep examining the evidence, keep testing the arguments, and most importantly, keep questioning the information around you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Econ Works. The goal of this series is to move beyond the surface-level descriptions of how markets work and start looking at the actual architecture of competition. We'll be back soon with another look at where the law and economics meet the market. For the full technical analysis and more from this series, visit us at econworks.com. If you found today's breakdown valuable, please subscribe and share the show. It helps us keep the analysis independent. From all of us here at Econ Works, thanks for listening.